Hello people, I'm Brian. My YouTube channel is NREM. NREM is actually a legal term, and it is defined as an action against the thing. My action against the thing is government, corporate government. I don't think America was designed to be ran by a bunch of corporate idiots. I'd like to touch first on the incident that may or may not have happened in South Carolina. I don't know. It was presented to us via mainstream media, and you can't believe anything that they say. I'd like to say that Mr. Obama and his address to the nation on emphasizing the extreme need for gun control, it's horseshit. He wants to talk about this incident that took the lives of 9 people, unfortunately, but he not once condemns the use of firearms by the police against the citizens of the United States. It's only June, and this year there have been over 500 American casualties thanks to the policy enforcement officers, and he fails to mention one word about it. I think it's wrong, but I'm just the average Joe. I'm no genius, I'm no rocket scientist, and the reason I'm making this video is actually the Jade Helm thing. And there's a few things I'd like to get out of the way before I get started on that, and this is one of them. This flag right here is the flag that represents the Republic of the United States. It is our civil flag. Once again, the civil flag of the United States Republic. This, on the other hand, is the corporate United States military battle flag, minus the gold fringe. I didn't have one of them, but they have gold fringe. And if you are going to fly one of these, you really need to be flying it upside down, because it's a distress signal. It's recognized as a distress signal, and that you're in need of help, which our country is in need of help. We have this Jade Helm thing coming up, and it's going to get ugly, I have a feeling. Now, let me get started with this. To get to the very beginning of the corporate takeover of the American Republic, we would need to go back to the War of Northern Aggression back in the mid-1800s and the never ratified 14th Amendment of the Constitution. But for a more comprehensive information on that scheme, I recommend you to visit Tattoot 1009's channel. That's TATOOT 1009. To get to the beginning where we're at, what I'm talking about, we only need to go back to December 23rd of 1913, when the 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, sold the country out to the Federal Reserve. 6 years later, he is quoted, "I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. We are no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men." But to make it even simpler to understand, we'll start at the Second World War, because the money and bank scheme is something you all need to go out and research. And I ain't got time for that. I'm talking about Jade Helm here. So we'll start at World War II and Mr. Prescott Bush, the father of the 41st President of the United States. George Herbert Walker Bush, and the grandfather of the 43rd President of the United States, George Walker Bush. Okay, starts out, Prescott Bush was the president of the Union Bank Corporation. He was one of the major contributors and funders to Adolf Hitler in his attempt to conquer the world. Obviously, they failed because we're still speaking English today. But through Operation Paperclip, many of the German scientists and other war criminals were smuggled into the United States and become part of the CIA's MK Ultra mind control program. I'll talk more about that later on. Okay, now, so let's move on to September 11th, 1990. Prescott Bush's son, George Herbert Walker, then 1990, President of the United States, is also an oil tycoon, and he had very suspicious ties and circumstances in the involvement of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. He was also a very personal best friend of Sam Walton, Walmart's founder. We'll touch on that a little later too. Well, let's stay on track with Prescott's son, President George Herbert Walker Bush's speech to America, bringing forth attention to the New World Order. And I quote his speech, part of it here. "The crisis in the Persian Gulf, as grave as it is, also offers a rare opportunity to move towards an historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order," unquote. All right, now let's move on 11 years down the road to the day, on that infamous day of September 11th, 2001. Prescott's grandson, George Walker Bush, holding the 43rd President of the United States, and his other grandson, Marvin, was serving on the board of directors at Securicom. Securicom was the company that contracted to supply security not only to Dulles Airport, but also to United Airlines. And they were two of the main corporations used in the assault on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Not only did he supply security to them two outfits, but he also supplied security to the World Trade Center itself and to the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. Now, if you're one of those schleeple and still believe mainstream media's narrative of 19 Al-Qaeda hijackers and that fiery collapse on that fateful day, there's no humanly help possible for you, so please just move on. You're wasting your time. For the rest of you, this governmental concerted attack brought to us, just to mention a few congressional acts, the Patriot Act, giving them power to, without warrant, listen in on your oral conversations, your telephone conversations, and even to read your email. It also opened up the door to the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA, which empowered them to lock you up indefinitely or even to make you disappear without warrant, lawyer, or a trial. Yeah, and we got the TSA, who are free to stick their fingers up your ass, grope you and your children, and deny you your unfettered right to travel. And of course, we also ended up with the Department of Homeland Security, who also absorbed in FEMA. Let's resonate on the Homeland Security here for just a minute. First, when was the last time the term Homeland was used? If you don't know, it was Nazi Germany. Second, why, over the last 5 years, has the Department of Homeland Security purchased nearly 2 billion rounds of ammunition? That's enough ammunition for about a 15-year war. Not only that, it's enough ammunition for 6 rounds for every man, woman, and child in the U.S. Along with that purchase, they bought 7,000 fully automatic weapons. Now, why'd they do that? I don't know. It's a good question. And third, why are there, it is said to be, no less than 800 FEMA re-education and dissident camps across the United States? And if you think your government will not lock you up for nothing, try telling that to the 120,000 or so Japanese-descended American citizens that they imprisoned during World War II. Let's move on to the CIA. Operation Paperclip, MK Ultra Mind Control, Operation Mockingbird. The mainstream media and social engineering through population manipulation. There's a lot of things there on that plate, and I'm not going to cover them. If you want to know about any of that, you'll have to do a little research yourself. Today, there's over 60 24/7 news channels and thousands of local channels, mostly owned by the same 6 elite families of the powers to be. It is said that Ted Turner in 1980 just happened to come up with the idea of the 24-hour news channel. But you got to remember, Turner is one of those maggots who's working on population reduction. So he is very well acquainted with the CIA and aware of their research. See, 35 years earlier, through Operation Paperclip, the CIA had smuggled them Nazi scientists into the country, and they continued their research on MK Ultra Mind Control and psychological warfare. Through Operation Mockingbird, they are controlling mass media, and by using mainstream media as their forum for public relations, they can use the terrorist groups that they have created, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, the Taliban, and who knows who else. They use them to instill fear in the public and keep them begging the government for protection. They're using race, religion, political views, and sexual orientation to keep us all quarreling amongst ourselves, because they know that united we will make a stand against them, and divided we won't stand at all. They're using MK mind control to create various hoaxes: Sandy Hook, Aurora, Colorado, and most recently, I believe, last Thursday, South Carolina. You should know what I'm talking about. It's all in an attempt to further their agenda on the citizenship disarmament, because they know that the only way to conquer a country is to disarm its citizens first. They hypnotize us by continually telling us the same lies over and over, repeating the lie, repeating the lie, repeating the lie, because they know that if they tell you the same lie long enough, you will definitely question the truth. Okay, let's move on here and discuss this disgusting Wally World, or as you may call it, Walmart. Right off the bat, here's some interesting facts and things to get you thinking. If Wally World was a country, it would have the world's 19th largest economy. 90% of all Americans live within 15 minutes of a Walmart. Wally World is the largest grocer retailer in the country. Figuring in the 520 million shopping visits and the 1.5 million employees spending their Wally checks elsewhere, over 25% of the United States annual commerce flows directly through Wally World. You can find anything at Wally World, from bananas to waterbeds. Wally World has moved into every major, minor, and many of the meager locales, forcing most every mom-and-pop business completely out of business. For the last years of my facts on Wally World, it was founded in Arkansas in 1962. 24 years later, in 1986, Sam Walton happened to appoint their first female to the board of directors. Any guesses who that might be? Hillary Rodham Clinton. But what I wanted to know is why, who, and how. And when I started doing a little research on Wally World, I realized that their spurt of growth started in the 90s. They almost doubled and tripled and quadrupled their self in the 90s and the 2000s. That's pretty interesting. So what's real interesting about it is how did it happen and why did it happen. First of all, you had 20 years of New World Order friends. George Herbert Walker Bush was president from 1989 to 1993. Then you had Hillary Clinton from 93 to 01. And the final 8 years, from 01 to 09, was baby Bush. Now I believe that it was the beginning to shut down all these stores is leading into Jade Helm here. Let's touch bases on these men. We have Harrison J. Bunnell, Barry Sorbarkov, Barack Slatoro, Barry Durham, and Barry Satoro. What do all these men have in common? They are the actual alias of one Barack Hussein Obama, or as I refer to him, Obama bin Laden. So what has this maggot done since he's become POTUS? Well, he's increased the national debt over 70%, from $10.6 trillion clear to $18.2 trillion. Now, if you don't know what $1 trillion is, let me put it in perspective a little bit for you. If you placed $1 bills front to back, you would end up with a row of $1 bills 68,000 miles long. And that's right, that row of $1 bills would circle the equator, the Earth, excuse me, at the equator 2 3/4 times. That's a lot of $1 bills. He's also opened the border to hundreds of thousands of people. Unrestrictedly, they're migrating here. He also reduced the qualifications to EBT or food stamp or whatever they call it now, the Obama bucks. Today there's over 50 million applicants who receive the Obama bucks. Now, of them 50 million applicants, there's actually 3 participants on the average on every application. That's 150 million people. Nearly half of the population of 320 million. Now, finally, let's look at the world reserve currency. The world reserve currency is operated on special draw rights. There's about 9 countries who have these draw rights, special rights to draw. In 2013, the United States had 63% of the special draw rights. Today, the United States is down to 40% of the draw rights. And here's the kicker. Many of you don't know. October 21st of this year, for the first time, China is scheduled to be put into the special draw rights on the world reserve currency. They're collapsing our economy, people. We need to wake up. it's an intentional collapse. And it's going to happen. Now, I don't know what to do, but here's some very interesting executive orders. Executive Order 10995 allows the government to seize control of the communications media by listening to the mainstream media and their bullshit lies today. I think this order's already been executed. Now, Executive Order 11051 specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning and gives authorization to put all executive orders into effect at times of increased international tensions and economic or financial crisis. Executive Order 1192-1 allows the Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency to develop plans to establish control over the mechanisms of production and distribution of energy sources, wages, salaries, credit, and the flow of money in the United States financial institution in any undefined national emergency. It also provides that when a state of emergency is declared by the President, Congress cannot review the action for 6 months. Then we have Executive Order 11310, which grants authority to the Department of Justice to inform the plans set out in Executive Order, to institute industrial support, to establish judicial and legislative liaisons, to control all aliens, to operate penal and correctional institutions, and to advise and assist the President. We have Executive Order 11001, and that allows the government to take over all health and education and welfare functions. We have Executive Order 11002. It designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. We have Executive Order 11,000. It allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under government supervision. Executive Order 11,004 allows the housing and finance authorities to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locales for populations. This is Agenda 21. Executive Order 10998 allows the government to take over all resources and farms. Executive Order 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals. Executive Order 10990 allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control of all highways and seaports. Executive Order 1105 allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. People, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed, that when any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its power in such forms as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety, happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and according to all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute disposition, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their safety in the future. Just to mention a few of these offenses committed upon the citizens of these United States by this corrupt corporate government: failing to adhere to the Constitution, employing large bodies of armed men, the police, who are free to protect agents of the government, while prosecuting we the people for the same identical actions. They are protecting the police by mock trials for any assaults or murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these United States, for the encroachment on the rights, liberties, and freedoms of we the people, for trying us for pretend offenses, of which there is not one of the three elements of a crime. There's no corpus delicti, a victim. There's no mens rea, a criminal intent. And there's no actus reus, one who has actually committed a crime and has been judicially charged, for imposing taxes upon us and fines without our consent. A tax is just a fine for doing good, and a fine is just a tax for doing whatever they say is bad, whether we like it or not. Will the time come when the 3% of the United States have the need to reband? That's not for me to decide. They already started the revolution. We're just waking up to it. People, you need to make sure you have food and water. I don't know if this is actually going to go live, but if you think that the few drug addicts we have running around here thieving for their fix for their habit is bad, wait till you have millions of people who are starving and want food. I think that's why they've been rehearsing these zombie drills and shit, because they know the shit's gonna happen. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my presentation, and that's my thoughts and what's really happening with this Jade Helm. I hope it makes sense to you. I don't blame you if you don't want to see a old hippie sitting here talking. But hey, I'm just saying what I see. I got a big mouth, and it would just totally rip me apart if this was to go live and I didn't expose what I know to the people. I believe in benevolence. I believe in peace and harmony. I believe that all men and women should be able to do their will, whatever it be, whether it's drugs or whatever, as long as they do not trespass upon the rights, the liberties, and the freedoms of another person. And that, my friends, is how our country was founded, and the principles of common law that have been thrown out by this corporate government. That's all I have to say on it. I advise you to be ready, because it's a lot smarter to have and not need than it is to need and not have. Thank you for your time and patience on this video. I'm sorry it took so long. Like I said, I've been real busy. Thanks. I'll make another one. It probably won't be on Jade Helm, but unless I find something interesting out. But have a good day. Thanks. See ya.